Coming up tonight on Bus News.
Brightbus have unveiled yet another tour, and Flixbus have unveiled new service changes coming into place over the next month across the United Kingdom.
Yeah, we're trying our absolute hardest to find interesting news to do with the buses around central Scotland. It is not much interesting is happening. We only have one article to talk about last week, and now we have only two this week. So, from this upcoming Thursday, which is the 25th of April, to the 29th of May next month, there are going to be numerous changes to Flixbus services across the UK. And we are going to be discussing only the ones in Scotland. As interesting as some of the changes are down south, I don't entirely care about England's bus networks. I say despite wanting to go to Manchester desperately. So whilst the journey from London to Glasgow isn't being altered at all, the return journey back down to Victoria bus station is going to be retimed. So it's going to depart Glasgow 15 minutes early, but arrive at London Victoria 14 minutes earlier. So it's going to be saving 25 minutes time, presumably from shorter laybys, the other coach stations and whatnot. And I'm going to be honest, this it seems quite exciting. I wouldn't say it's half bad, so yeah. So they're completely redesigning the AT for the most part. Instead of doing Aberdeen to Bristol, it's now only going to be Edinburgh to Liverpool. So from Manchester, it's going to then go down to Liverpool instead of going all the way down to Bristol via the west coast. Which, it's interesting. However, another big thing I've missed is that now, instead of operating direct from Edinburgh to Carlisle, it's now going to serve Glasgow, which I think is an interesting decision, which, personally, I'm all for. I think it's pretty cool. This is an interesting move. The bus stops at Deer Park and Livingston are finally going to get used, so that's cool. And this seems, from face value, considering there's only 4 stops along the route, you'd assume that it's probably a good, half hour or so quicker than the 900, which is the main link between Edinburgh and Glasgow. But no, this one takes 4 minutes longer. However, less stops, which I think is cool, and a bus to serve Deer Park is pretty cool, because I feel like Deer Park has a lot of potential. I feel it's in a weird position, which sort of makes me second guess that. But I could see a lot of use for Deer Park. I think if they actually ran services through there, it would get used more. But that's just my 2 cents. So, even more competition from Flixbus against Scottish CityLink. This is interesting. Now, the 091's being extended up to Aberdeen, which could be quite interesting. I think the Glasgow to Dundee route were really... I've never been on it, but it sounds like just due to the route, since you can get other buses even further and to more easy to access places. It always sounded like the 91 never got very well used, personally, from what I've heard. But I think extending it to Aberdeen could do numbers for the passenger service, so that's pretty neat. I'm going to be going on the 92 in a couple of weeks' time, and I think this new timetable is a lot more useful than the old one, because it means that I'm not going to have to leave my house to get to Perth quite a lot earlier than I would normally. So now, instead of having to leave the house at 9:30, I can sleep in for an extra hour, which is awesome. This is an interesting move, because I was on the 94 just this time last week, actually, and it was really busy with passengers heading from Edinburgh to Dundee, so I think that maybe this change isn't the best idea. I mean, from a revenue perspective, then yeah, it means that they've probably gonna have to exchange onto a different bus at Broxton, so more income for them. It's just, why add the extra step in aside from a revenue perspective? Like, honestly. Wednesdays and Thursdays, that feels a bit specific. And that's all the Flixbus changes I'm going to be discussing today. So, overall, I think the changes, some are better, some are worse. I do like the change on the 80, having it run Edinburgh to Liverpool instead of Dundee to Bristol. But some changes I do think fall flat. I think the 94 change specifically, I'm not a fan of. The 92 change is alright. I think the extra journey is not the most useful, but I do think the retimings of other journeys is quite cool. So, yeah. That's all for that matter. Let's move on to our next and last article. Next, there is going to be another tour from Brightbus. They just can't get enough action this year, can they? It is going to be the Brightbus Broughton Bridges tour, as you can see here. Wow, so shiny. Woo. And, I thought at first when I saw this, it was going to use an open top bus. Like, if it was maybe going to use, like, 8931, like one of the E400s or Gemini 2s. And then I went on to Facebook, literally minutes after, and looked in the McGills bus enthusiasts group to see 8951, the E400 MMC, had been repainted in bright bus orange. No extra special liveries or anything, just orange. So I think that's going to be moved back to Livingston and get fully repainted. So we'll see, but if it isn't, I will be utterly astonished, because why wouldn't it be used on that tour?
So yeah, there's another thing I forgot to mention. There's a new Sir Sterling sightseeing tour, which is probably also going to come under the Brightbus band. If you are wondering why I'm whispering, it's because it's literally just after midnight and my family's asleep, but I had to put this in. It's a legal requirement.
But anyways, that's all for tonight. I shall see you guys when there's interesting news again, which, with the rate that there is news coming out after the absolute slew of news we had in February and March, it could be another good, maybe even a month or so before we have anything interesting to report on. So, in the meantime, adios!